Hey guys, Disturbed One here with Monolithic Rating. I'm going to be giving you a very general, not very brief, Blood DK tanking guide. This is not some hardcore 25-man heroic Thunderforged guide. However, it will be a good way to get you into the groove of DK tanking if you're new to it. Obviously you choose Death Knight and then you choose Blood as your specialization. Derp-de-derp. Talents. Tier 1, Rolling Blood, Plague Leech, and Unholy Blight. Rolling Blood is what you want because it turns your blood boil into a pestilence, which saves you a rune every time you need to spread your diseases. It's an amazing ability. Plague Leech is not really very good in any situation. It's just not worth taking because it removes your diseases from the target. Unholy Blight is good while you're leveling, especially before you get Outbreak, but once you get Outbreak, taking Rolling Blood does the same thing. It's just spammable. So don't take Unholy Blight. Not at 90. In Tier 2 talents, you're going to want Purgatory. Purgatory is a sort of cheat death. Whenever you take a killing blow, you have 3 seconds to be healed for the damage you have taken. Back up to 1, you essentially have negative health. And if you don't get healed, you die. But you get 3 seconds of negative health. Anti-Magic Zone is a very mediocre ability right now. It absorbs 75% of the magic damage taken by all raid members inside of it, but there's a limit of 140k damage, which is weak as hell in a raid. It doesn't even last a full second, so it's useless right now. In 5.4, however, they're changing it to it's just a flat 3-second duration and absorbs 75% of all magic damage during that time, which will make it much more viable for certain situations. Lichborn is not worth taking because the only way for Death Coil to heal you is to use Runic Power, which you're going to be using on Rune Strike, not Death Coil. Tier 3, Death's Advance, Chillbanes, and Asphyxiate. Death's Advance will be your main ability of choice here. However, you may switch it out between fights much more frequently than you will any other ability. Death's Advance gives you a base movement speed increase, and activating it gives you an even bigger movement speed increase, and you can't be slowed below 100% base move speed for 6 seconds. Chillbanes makes anything you hit with Frost Fever slowed for 30% for 10 seconds. That means anything you hit, say you hit Outbreak on a group of ads, and you hit Blood Boil, which pestilences them, it slows everything. It's very good for kiting, especially if you're on a boss like Tordos and you're on ad duty. Asphyxiate turns your Strangulate, which is a 3-second silence, 60-second cooldown, into a 30-second cooldown, 3-second stun / interrupt. For certain boss fights, such as Counter of Elders, whenever you're on interrupt duty, you will want this ability. However, it's not that useful whenever you don't need an interrupt, or at least not more so than Death's Advance. It's alright for trash sometimes. Tier 4. The only viable heal here is Death Pact. It sacrifices half of your pet's health to heal you for half of its maximum health. Death Siphon eats a death rune to heal you for a little bit of the damage dealt, 150%. It sounds like a lot, but it doesn't hit that hard. Death Strike heals you for a lot more than Death Siphon ever will, so it's not worth wasting death runes on it. Conversion costs way too much runic power for the return, so don't use it ever. Unless you're leveling, maybe it's worth it, but once you're at 90, you need to use your Runic Power on Rune Strike, and that's it. Alright, Tier 5 is a little more iffy, but not by that much. Runic Corruption, if you do the math, will give you more return, total overall by about 20%, than Blood Tap. However, Blood Tap lets you activate 2 death runes whenever you want during the fight, as long as you have them stored up. So it's just personal preference. If it's a certain fight where you know you're going to take a lot of damage at some point and you want to make sure you have a death rune up, take Blood Tap and pop it whenever you need to. Otherwise, take Runic Corruption so that your runes regenerate a lot double speed, just off and on throughout the fight. Runic Empowerment is not worth jack shit because it makes your tanking unpredictable, which means your self-healing will be very sporadic. Your threat will be sporadic. Your rune generation will be sporadic. It's very, very annoying. Tier 6 is complete personal preference. Gorfine's Grasp takes an enemy or an ally, and you use it, and it sucks all nearby enemies to that target. That's it. Long cooldown. 1 minute. Remorseless Winter causes every enemy around you to be slowed by an increasing amount for 8 seconds per stack. One stack applied every 1 second. If they hit 5 stacks, everything hits 5 stacks is stunned for 6 seconds. It's an amazing ability on trash. I fucking love it, and I've been using the shit out of it. Desecrated Ground is also really good on a fight with a lot of tank CC, such as a fear that you can't be interrupted or something. It puts a plot of goo on the ground, and if you stand in it, you can't be CC'd for 8 seconds. And it breaks CC when you use it. It's a very good ability too. Personal preference. Glyphs. I personally use the Glyph of Anti-Magic Shell. It increases the absorption of AMS by 25% from 75 to 100. That means you don't take any magic damage while it's up until you would have taken your full health bar worth of damage. And it gives you a shitload of running power. I use Glyph of Vampiric Blood, which reduces the healing or the health bonus gain to it to 0%, but increases the healing received increase by 15. So you don't get any bonus health, but you get 40% increased healing. It's an amazing ability unless you only do solo content, in which case you may not want to use it. Dancing Rune Weapon is a personal preference glyph, really. It just increases your threat. That's all it does, is it massively increases the threat you generate while Dancing Rune Weapon is up, and it lowers your DPS by a tiny, tiny amount. A lot of people use Glyph of Icebound Fortitude, which reduces the duration of Icebound Fortitude to 3 seconds from 12, but lowers the cooldown to 90 seconds from 180. Also, some people use the Glyph of Death Coil, which causes it to apply a bubble to your target, even if they're not undead, if it's an ally, instead of only being able to heal undead allies. I don't like it though, because I don't want to use my Runic power on Death Coil. Your minor glyphs aren't very important. The only one you really want is Glyph of Resilient Grip. Other than that, it's personal preference. Your gems. Your meta gem will be the Austere Primal Diamond, 324 stamina, 2% armor value. Your blue will be the Puissant Wild Jade, 160 mastery, 120 stamina. Your red will be the Fine Vermillion Onyx, 160 parry, 160 mastery. Your yellow will be the Fractured Sun's Radiance, 320 mastery, straight up off the top. If you're an enchanter, obviously enchant your rings with mastery if you can. If you can't, then do stamina. If you can't do that, do dodge and parry. If you got jewel crafting gems, get mastery. If you're a blacksmith, get mastery. Just do whatever you can, get as much mastery as you can, guys. Mastery will be your main stat. Mastery and then stamina your second main. That does not mean completely ignore dodge and parry, but prioritize mastery and then stamina, and then dodge and parry equal. Hit rating and expertise, unlike a lot of DK tank or a lot of tank classes, isn't actually very important to a DK. We have pretty high threat without them because we have so many dots, so much spell damage, and you ain't gonna miss that much. You'll get enough hit and enough expertise just from gear to not need to worry about necessarily capping. Just stack mastery, guys. Alright, now I'm going to show you some footage and just let you see what it's like in a real-time situation, and explain to you how to do different kinds of pulls, guys. Enjoy me talking some more. Alright guys, as you can see here, I open up with Outbreak on an ad, run through spamming Blood Boil and everything else. I hit the big ad with a Death Strike, and then I keep spamming Blood Boil and pull the boss. I notice the rogue hasn't stopped DPS in the ad, so I Death Grip it over, AoE everything together, and keep aggro. Then I focus on staying alive. That's pretty much all you gotta do, run out of shit like that. Even without Death's Advance, I'm able to make it out of the AoE, so you do not have any excuse to ever get hit by shit like that. That's about it. Other than that, DK tanking is very, very simple. As you can see right there, I stood in the breath to build up vengeance. If you don't have any gear, do not do that. You will fucking die. Alright, so all I'm doing here is spamming my rotation. The general DK tanking rotation is Death Strike if you have Frost or Unholy runes, Death Strike if you have Blood runes. If you don't have either one of those, just use Heart Strike or Blood Boil as needed. Heart Strike does more damage, Blood Boil refreshes your dots. If you notice your healer doing what my healer's doing and picking up ads to bring them to me, kill the ads, pick them up, don't let your healer die. That's about it, really. Remember, never use a Death Rune for anything other than Death Strike if it's at all avoidable. It's just not worth it otherwise. You have got to use Death Runes on Death Strike. It's your main ability. And never let your runic power actually hit 100, or if you do, make sure you go from 90 to 100 with 1 rune, or 80 to 100 with 2. That way you never overcap, and then spam Rune Strike till you're back down to 0. Alright guys. Alright guys, this is Sholomance, and as you can see I control undeaded one of the ads. Here's a trick, make sure you know Icy Touch's range. If you jump off of here and you hit him with Icy Touch, the little ads all despawn. You gotta worry about them. So make sure you know your ability ranges and you can do little neat tricks like this. Alright. In this part, we show you how to AoE tank and how to AoE pick up. I pop an Outbreak on one ad, run over into a group of others with it right on my ass and pop Blood Boil, spreads it to everything. Death Grip the same ad, run over to another group, Blood Boil, pops it to everything. Now I have dots on every ad and I have a lot of threat building on them. Except for the one that a rogue or a DK single targeted. But it's okay, 1 Rune Strike, all the aggro's on me. Drop Death and Decay and spam the shit out of Blood Boil. Spam Death Strike to get my Death Runes growing. And in AoE situations you are allowed to use your Death Runes on Blood Boil, but never when you're tanking a boss, never single target. Straight up guys. In this clip, I will be showing you how to pick up ads if the DPS decides to pull aggro, because say they're super geared and you obviously don't have as much threat on AoE. So here we go, you see me picking up a whole bunch of trash in Shadowpan Monastery, and our mage is arcane and going ape shit, so I have to death grip him. The trick here is to have a good add-on that shows your health bars in your mob and make them change color when you don't have aggro if you're a tank. Mine are all green if I have threat on the mob, or if the other tank in the raid has threat on a mob. But if a DPS or healer has threat, it turns flashing and red, so I always know what to taunt. It makes my job a lot easier and keeps your ass alive a lot more than you know. We're nearing the end of the video, so I want to cover 2 last things. 1, overpulling, which is what I do right here. I didn't pay attention to my healer's gear, so I just went ball mass crazy and overpulled a trash pack. If you've never done Monastery, you don't know about this particular pack. They do a lot of damage with that magic breath. And I pulled about 6 of them right here into 2 healers. In a geared group, no problem whatsoever, but my healer is very, very undergeared. Do not be afraid to blow cooldowns on trash. Trash packs generally will do more damage to you than a boss will, so use Icebound Fortitude, use Remorseless Winter, use everything if you need to, doesn't matter, do not let yourself die, that'll cause a wipe. Trash is the threat, not the bosses, never forget that, unless you're in a raid, and then obviously trash is a pushover. You get 25 people, they can just AoE everything and not give a fuck. Alright, here we go, to close out the video, I wanted to say 2 things. Soul Reaper. 1. Use it. If your target's at like 35% health, 37% health, start using Soul Reaper on cooldown in place of a Blood Strike. It does so much more damage than your Blood Strikes ever will, or Heart Strikes, I mean. Use Soul Reaper. It is a great executability. Use it. 2. Never let your dots fall off, or at least never let Blood Plague fall off, which gives the 10% damage debuff. Frost Fever, you need it for the damage and threat. Never let Blood Plague fall off, because you need it for survivability. And lastly, Army of the Dead. A lot of DKs will use this as a threat ability on the pull or something, and you are free to do that. But don't forget that Army of the Dead decreases your damage you take while channeling it by amount equal to your dodge plus parry. So whatever your pure avoidance is, minus 5% is how much less damage you take while channeling it. You can use Army of the Dead as a tanking cooldown. Don't forget that, and don't be afraid to do so. Alright guys, this has been Disturbed One, talking a bunch of shit. Peace out.